The thing I hate the most from the right is this constant refrain, yeah, socialism, it's a great idea if only it worked. It's not true. It's an unbelievably morally shitty idea. The reason is this. The basic premise of socialism is, I'm here, I'm breathing, give me crap. Right? You have an obligation to care for me. I have a right to health care. I can force that doctor to go to medical school, expend $200,000, spend her entire life learning medicine, and then I can walk into her house and force her to provide me medicine. Right? Capitalism, by nature, is the opposite. Capitalism is the idea that I will starve unless I give you a good or service that you want. Right? If I don't give you something that you want, I'm not going to eat tonight. It's forced altruism, effectively. Right? We have to have a trade. We have to come to some sort of consensus. I have to give you something cool, and you have to give me something cool. Right? It's great. Socialism is rape, and capitalism is consensual sex. Right? The lack of my $100,000 salary, that's because society is mean, and so we have to transform the society. And that's why young people, again, 40% back speech codes in American life. This is why I think the last poll was nearing or over 40% of young people are okay with socialism, like the actual socialism, because they don't know anything. They've been taught stupidity, and how they feel is all that matters. I mean, there's a video that's going around the internet getting all sorts of play about income inequality. Income inequality is the stupidest issue. Income inequality means nothing. Right? I mean, I have a lot of income inequality with Bill Gates, but I'm doing pretty well, and I don't care that Bill Gates is doing really well. The only thing we should all care about is that there are poor people. We should figure out how poor people can do better, not how to make Bill Gates less rich. But this video is going around and saying, here's a poll of what Americans think the wealth distribution should look like, and here is what the wealth distribution actually looks like. And I watched this video in bewilderment, and young people love it. And I watched this video in bewilderment saying, who told you that you get to tell the universe how wealth is distributed? Right? Who told you that you have a moral say as to how wealth is distributed? It's immoral, it's evil, it's wrong. You're going to have to steal people's labor from them. But people are not told this, and so they think that their own subjective vision of what reality should look like should govern what reality actually looks like, and it's only later, after 80 years of communist failure, that they realize, oh, that, and hundreds of millions of people dead, that they realize, oh, that was a bad idea. All taxes are is a gangster shakedown. And so and that's all they are. And so we can all agree that some gangster shakedowns are worthwhile because we have to pay for police, but the idea that, here's the problem with any sort of progressive tax. There are three, and this is just the general problem with progressive taxation. You have three people in a room, two of them are not Bill Gates and one of them is. They vote 2-to-1 that they should take half of Bill Gates' wealth. Okay, this is a simplified version of American politics. Yeah. Here's my basic rule for all legislation and all taxation. If you pass this law, are you willing to shoot the person who disobeys? Because that's what the government is. The government is just a big shooting people machine. Right? That's what the government does. In whether you're talking national defense or the police, there's certain laws where you pass them and you say, if you disobey this law, and if you resist me with a gun, I'm willing to shoot you. So what laws are you willing to shoot somebody over? This seems to me a pretty good measure of, am I willing? So, for example, for taxation, yes. So the question is, are you willing to shoot people who don't pay taxes if those taxes go for the national defense that protects us all? The answer is yes, because if nobody pays that tax, then presumably everybody dies in some sort of terrorist attack. But if you're going to ask me, are you willing to pay a progressive tax for whatever stupid government bull they're pushing today? And am I willing to shoot somebody over that? No, I think the purpose of the tax is just as important as the percentage of the tax. So the question in Hobby Lobby is whose freedom is being infringed upon? Employees' freedom is not infringed upon when they enter into a consensual relationship with an employer that includes certain types of health care.
Not consensual.
Of course it is. They can quit. Who is forcing them? Where is the gun? Where is the gun? Who is forcing them? Where is the chain? Who is locking them to their desk?
Stop with the gun language.
The reason that I use the gun language is because it is vitally important for people to understand that every government measure at the end of the day it must be compelled by force. That's what government measures are for. There is a vast difference, a huge difference in terms of personal liberty and freedom between the government compelling behavior and a company saying that we are not going to provide certain types of coverage, and if you don't like that, you can quit or buy your own coverage. There's a vast difference. If we can just trust the government, then why aren't we just trusting the government to do the right thing now? I don't understand why a piece of legislation makes them better at what they do. I mean, the government is not very good at what they're doing now. Why does new wording make them not suck?
Because part of the reason... Part of the reason you have a law or initiative as a deterrent, that government won't even be involved, that the bad guys won't be going to gun shows to buy guns. so they have to circumvent it.
Well, but that's exactly the point. If bad guys are not going to gun shows with regard to Ebola, and for a second, this is a mild digression. With regard to Ebola, the federal government just made the case that they don't want a federal travel ban, right? Because they said if there's a federal travel ban, people will just find a way to circumvent the federal travel ban. Okay, do you see the analogy here? Well, I mean, of course one government policy leads to the next. If you raise the minimum wage, then it's going to raise the rents. When it raises the rents, you're going to have to build affordable housing. When you have to build affordable housing, you have to tax people to build the affordable housing. When you tax people to build the affordable housing, people move out of the city, and you have to raise taxes on the people who remain in the city, and this is how you hollow out the economy of a major metropolitan area in the United States.
Health insurance is an earned benefit. It's not given for free to employees. They earn it. Should your employer be able to decide how you spend your money?
Hold up. Hold on. Earned 1 second. Earned from whom? Okay, I may think that I earn twice the salary that I get from this radio station. That doesn't mean that I have an earned benefit from the radio station for twice what they're willing to pay me. It's always a consensual relationship.
You pay for your health care?
Well, first of all, I do because it was negotiated in the contract that I signed, in which I voluntarily engaged. And if I don't like that, I can quit tomorrow. The reality of the situation is that the economy grows because people engage in consensual transactions and people invent new things in order to engage in more of those consensual transactions. That's not an impoverishing thing. The truth is that socialism is the most selfish philosophy on planet Earth because it is based on the essential concept that I am breathing, therefore I deserve. Capitalism is in essence forced altruism because if I don't give you something that you want, then I will starve. If I don't give you something that you want, then I will starve because it is based on consent, whereas socialism is based inherently on force. When the SATs were at 1600, Princeton University found that black folks were being given a bonus of 230 points on average by the top universities in the country. Asians were being penalized by 50 points. But that's fair because Asians were obviously beneficiaries of Asian privilege. Because our Asian founders wrote the Asian Constitution to benefit Asian people. Start with the notion of white privilege, which has become this buzzword that you hear all the time now. White privilege is responsible for everything up to and including the Kardashians. It's responsible for everything, white privilege. White privilege is a way to silence anybody who is not of color. That's what white privilege is. It is just a leftist bullshit term that means shut up because you are not a member of a minority group, a privileged minority group in the leftist space. It's reverse racism of the highest order. You're basically saying to white people who aren't racist, and you can't find any proof of their racism, that they must be racist because they're white. That is called racism. If you are accusing somebody of something simply because of the color of their skin without any evidence, that's called racism.
White people being able to accumulate wealth and the benefits throughout time, how can you say that hasn't put black people today at a disadvantage because of that?
It has put black people today at an initial disadvantage, but that does not mean that the rules by which they play are different than white people now. Okay, so the fact is that some people are born poor, and put race aside for a second, some people are born poor, and some people are born rich in America. Right? We can acknowledge this. Some people are born poor, and some people are born rich. That does not mean that, number one, the poor people have a right to go to the rich people and take away their money, because that's called theft. And second of all, it also does not mean that making individual good decisions does not allow the poor person to become rich. There's tremendous income mobility in the country even still. And so the idea is, if the idea is that your grandfather, your great-grandfather couldn't go to college because of the racism of the GI Bill after World War II, and that's why you flunked out of high school, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. You know, make good decisions, you will get a better result. It doesn't mean we all start in the same place, we don't. None of us start in the same place. Some of us are smarter, some of us are dumber, some of us are taller, and some of us are shorter. You know, that's the reality of life. That's just how the universe is. The question is what we do to better ourselves. And if the idea is that you get to take money from people who were not involved in your oppression in the first place in order to rectify something that happened to great-granddad, then we can play this game of historic grievance all the way down the line.
Of black families have zero or negative wealth. White family worth, in terms of financial worth, is 69 times more than that of black families. Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high? Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened. It's what I like to call decision privilege. Right? It turns out that there is actual privilege in American society. But that privilege is not tied to color. It's tied to making good decisions. White are not genetically predisposed to making good decisions. Black people are not genetically predisposed to making bad decisions. The greatest decision privilege of all is growing up in a two-parent household. Right? If you decide to bring up your child in a two-parent household, you have given them the greatest step they will ever have on the road toward success in life. And this is true across races. The poverty rate in the black community, the poverty rate for families with two parents in the home is 7%. 7%. The poverty rate in the white community, if there's only one parent in the home, usually a single mother, is 22%. What happened to white privilege? Did it just disappear? Or does it turn out that if you have one parent in the home, it's a lot harder to raise kids than if you have two parents in the home? And it has nothing to do with white or black. It has nothing to do with white or black. There is never, right now, there are no white people in America, and historically speaking, generally too, there are no white people in America forcing a black guy to get his black girlfriend pregnant and then take off. That's just him being a douchebag.
You can't make people feel good about being conservative, make them feel really, really bad about being leftist. You know why? They deserve to feel bad about being leftist. They're siding with an evil ideology.
And let me tell you something about safe spaces. There's only one group of people who want safe spaces that are race-specific. There are only one group of people that want safe spaces so that they never have to hear from anybody of a different ideology or political persuasion. Those people are called fascists. Okay, you've got a bunch of fascists, damn fascists on this campus, who are trying to shut down political debate and trying to cloister themselves in this little cocoon of stupidity so they don't have to debate anyone or think about issues outside their kin so that they can feel comfortable. Guess what? Life isn't about feeling comfortable. Life is about bettering yourself. Get off your ass, you stupid pansies.
The real racists are and always have been folks on the left who wish to exploit racial division in order to pay off their cronies. The reason the education system sucks in the inner city is because the left wants to pay off its union buddies at the expense of black kids. The reason that the left has not done anything for the inner cities despite years of dominance in Detroit, the reason is because they wanted the violence. And it is about intent. It's not about effect.
I'm offended by the language of uprising applied to people who are breaking into other black people's stores and looting them. This is a lack of values, and people who are destroying private property, destroying cop cars, in an uprising against what exactly? Against the black police chief, against a mostly minority police force, against the black mayor, against the black president, against the black attorney general, against against a city council that is 9 of 15 are black and all 15 are elected Democrats. What is the uprising against? What is it seeking to achieve? I still don't see what exactly the riots are seeking to achieve. Bottom line is, this is all. It all could be boiled down to just act like a mensch. Act like a human being. Honestly, it's not useful to riot, it's not useful to break things, it's not useful to throw rocks at people. And the idea that we're supposed to sort of correlate your level of outrage.
I'm going to stick to the 30 seconds on this
the last sentence. The last sentence. Yeah. The idea that we're supposed to correlate your level of outrage with a certain level of justification. In other words, the more outraged you are and the more angry you are, the more justified you must be, is absolute nonsense.
Oh, what a milestone. What a moment. We finally have a black president. Yeah, except he's going to be the president. And it turns out I didn't need to see a black guy as president to believe that black people could be presidents in the United States. The only people who believed that are people who are misinformed about the nature of the United States by the Democratic Party and actual racists.
You can believe what you want, but I would ask you to consider this. Shouting institutional racism does not actually combat racism. You have to find individual instances, and you have to show me who the racists are so that we can fight them together. I hate racism. I think it's evil. But if you're just going to say institutional racism every time something bad happens, there's no way to fight it. I need a policy that you're proposing, or I need a person who's actually racist so that we can fight it together, or we can determine whether the policy is good. What I find really problematic is the virtue signaling that I see by so many people on the other side, which is, I don't have to give you the racist, I don't have to tell you who he is or what measures I'm proposing. I just say institutional racism, everybody cheers for me because that's an approved point of view, and now we move on with our lives. You haven't helped anybody, you've just made yourself feel better.
In your video where you debunk white privilege, you talk about how white privilege is a made-up term by privileged minorities, so I was wondering if you can elaborate on some of the privileges that you think minority groups have.
Okay, so in privileges in law, so when I say privilege, I'm actually going to talk about legal standing. Okay, so affirmative action is a privilege. Affirmative action is a privilege. Subprime mortgages designed to appeal to minority recipients without proper qualifications, that is a privilege. Now, those are a couple examples of privilege. Privilege would also be the police being told that they can't police in communities the same way they would in other communities because they don't understand the problems of minority communities. That's a privilege. And by the way, these privileges are not helpful, but these are, as an overall matter, but it is certainly it's very difficult for me to see how it's not a privilege to get a lower score on the SAT than the Asian guy who's living in exactly the same circumstance. He gets penalized 50 points, you get 230 points on the SATs. That is definitionally a privilege. So there's one. Do you disagree?
Yeah, but I don't want to take up everyone's time, so I'm just going to let.
You know, the problem with the minimum wage is that for the left, every argument is a moral argument, not an economic argument, so you have to take the morality of the argument away. It is beyond that, there is a fundamental argument here. It is fundamentally immoral for you to come in and tell somebody that they are not allowed to make a free and binding contract. Okay, no one is being chained to their grill. If somebody doesn't want to work for that wage, they can leave. Right? And who are you to tell the 17-year-old black kid who wants to work for $7.50 an hour that he is forbidden by law from taking a job at $7.50 an hour? Who are you to do that? Right? This makes you a totalitarian. It's a totalitarian rule. You have to speak the language of morality. You must speak the language of morality. The left wins because nobody on the left knows anything about politics. They know you're evil. That's it. They know you're a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe who hates the poor. Right? That's what they know about you. And it's not they think that about you. They know that about you. Deep down, they know all these evil things about you, which is why Thanksgiving dinners are always so awkward if you're unfortunate to have Jewish relatives or you have friends on the left, which are the exact same focus group. The answer to all of this is to speak in the language of morality. This is why I never say the government compels people to do stuff. The government does not compel people to do stuff. The government compels people to do stuff at point of gun. Why do I say that? Because leftists are scared of guns. When we say the government compels things, people say, oh, well, compulsion, well, that's just like taxes, right? No, that's somebody coming to your house in the middle of the night with a SWAT team, with a gun, pointing it at you and dragging you off to prison for not doing what they want. I have a 2-year-old and I have a 2-month-old. Those generations are only going to be protected if we revivify our movement. If we come together around those values, and if we learn who our enemies are, and if we fight them every single step of the way, never giving an inch, and if we never stop fighting, we can't get tired. If we do, they win. We can't let them have a few victories. They exploit every single victory and then push on to the next victory. The left is a ceaseless, heedless monstrosity. It's our job to hold that wall. Now, Ronald Reagan always said this. He always said freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And that's exactly right. But to avoid extinction, we have to grow, we have to evolve, we have to get stronger, we have to get tougher. We have to rededicate ourselves to the principle, we have to rededicate ourselves to the fight, and that's hard work. And that's our mission. We're an empire of liberty. We're a nation conceived in freedom. Our mission is to carry that freedom forward in the face of all odds, and that mission doesn't change. That mission is eternal. And that mission calls to us from the end of history. It's God's mission. It's the founder's mission. It's a mission that has to be fulfilled at all costs. The heroes of days past, Washington and Adams and Jefferson and Lincoln and Reagan, our fathers, our mothers, our ancestors, who fought to bring us to these shores and then make these shores free and give their kids a chance, they're cheering us on. They are. They are. I believe in an afterlife, and they're cheering us on, begging us to stumble forward because nobody else is going to carry the torch. We're the guardians of limited government and individual liberty. We're the guardians of Judeo-Christian Western civilization. There's no one else left. We're the last line of defense. We stand together, and we must never, ever, we will not ever, ever stop fighting. Thanks so much.